Hey fellow gardeners, it's Aaron from Garden Seed Life. Gonna do a garden walkthrough here on this early September fall day. The beautiful colors in the garden. There's several things left to do before we turn some of the plants over. Pull them out, put them in the compost, discard anything that has any signs of disease or rot. Beautiful blue skies, 80 degree, unseasonable, but this is like an Indian summer. We just want to take a walk through and give some thought to the things we have left to do and get some planning. So won't you join me as we take a walk through some of the beds. So we're going to take a look at some of the beds we have some work yet to do in. It's fun to walk out and see the monarch butterfly still fluttering around, enjoying some of these last days in late summer, early fall. We have our zucchini plants that have not yet succumbed. This is difficult to maintain these this late in the season. These plants are very mature. You can see the developed stalk. I had intended on staking. You see I have stakes put in place for every plant. I put them in tomato cages last year and was going to tie them up on stakes, which I've successfully done. But everything seemed like I had good spacing. So I decided to just go ahead and leave the plants as is, and it's really important to make sure you continue throughout the season to clean up the lower leaves, keeping all the brown and decaying stems and little shoots so that you can keep the critters and the bugs from getting and infestating your plants. So we still have signs of growth. You also want to come in and check. You may have some zucchini that look like they're going to be fine, but when you touch them, if they're soft, you're really not going to see that fruit develop. So you want to pull that and you want to discard that. Even though it looks like it's going to grow, you can tell if there's no firmness to it, there's no sense in letting that sit there and possibly introduce disease into the plant. There's another one going on here. Same thing. Pull those off. There's a whole other area of new growth happening. We'll let these flower over the next few days. This plant, may potentially produce some more zucchini. We had 8 in this 4x8 foot bed, or 4x10 foot bed actually, which is probably the extra 2 feet is probably why I had the good spacing where I didn't need to have the plants go vertical. I've also had where I need to check around the perimeter hanging over the bed. We try to avoid those club-like fruits, but around the front, the one morning I was walking towards the bed and I didn't notice, but there was a monstrous sized zucchini hanging over the edge. You can see how some of these leaves, while they're getting beautiful sunshine, can shade where you might not notice that there's a fruit growing under there. So keep your eye peeled for that. I'm gonna take a quick walk through over to the back corner of the garden. Something you might want to keep in mind is a few weeks ago, back in my compost area, I decided to stick some zucchini seeds. So back here, I've actually got 3 brand new plants coming up. They are on the verge of getting their early blooms, flowers. The first few will be the male flowers. but probably in about 3 weeks, we might see some female flowers, and potentially, I maybe could have got those in a couple weeks earlier, but you can always look to possibly start a second wave later in the season and give yourself the opportunity to possibly come up with some zucchini later in the season when the pests are pretty much gone. You're not going to get the you're not going to have the vine boring grub getting into the plants this late in the season, so it's a good opportunity. So back over with this bed, the front corner of my garden by the greenhouse, we had our onions growing in here, the red onions, and we had some white ones in the front and some very large, I'll show some pictures at the end of the video, one red ribbon at the county fair for the red onions. They were beautiful this year. We went ahead and started some late season peas. I need to get this bed watered. We haven't had rain for a couple days. These are looking fine. Just need to get the trellising fence system set in here so these guys can start to support each other. And if these are anything like the second wave of peas we had in the spring, early summer, late spring, in the second bed, they were 3 and 4 feet tall. So I'm probably going to need to get something a little taller than I typically would put in here. This bed here had the peas, second wave of peas. That's cleaned out, and I've got cardboard over top of that. So when we're ready, we can just pull that out. And we're going to get garlic set in here and probably another bed for the late summer, actually the October timeframe. When you're looking to do the garlic, you're going to want to get either picking up your local sets, local cloves, the bulbs. You're going to break the bulbs off into individual cloves and plant those. Typically, you're going to want to utilize the larger cloves of the garlic off of the bulb, because the larger the clove that you have, the larger the bulb you're going to grow from it. So you can also order those online. You basically want to get those in the ground 6 weeks before your ground freezes over. Not the first frost of the fall, but the actual ground freezing. So for zone 6A, where I live in northeastern Ohio, we're talking getting your garlic in sometime in October. So don't wait too late in the season to get those secured and on order. Your mail order companies will know when to ship those to you. Here we have our drying beans. We've got some pinto beans here, and these guys are ready to go. You can feel the pods are nice and dry. If you crack these guys open, you can hear them cracking. Here's some cannellini. Got some cannellini drying beans. We already harvested our bush green beans. And then we've got some black turtle, just basically a variety of black bean. So you can hear the outer pod is cracking, and inside that you're gonna have these beautiful black drying beans. You pretty much can just sit in the house one evening when you're watching a movie or something with a couple bowls in front of you and pull those beans right out of the pod, blow any of the debris out, and you can store those on the kitchen counter to make soup and all kinds of other wonderful things from. We're going to need to finish cleaning up the tomato beds, pick any other late season fruits that are yet to ripen. As far as the tomatoes go, as soon as the tomato at this time of year, early September, starts to turn red, you can pull that now. Instead of letting it sit outside, you can say, yeah, you want to have vine ripened tomatoes, but this guy is going to be ripe in the house on the counter within a matter of a couple days, 3-4 days. You can have him in the house, see what you've got, keep him out of the way of any pests late in the season, taking advantage of them sitting out here. And we're going to come out later today and finish pulling, it looks like probably most of these. Some of the ones that are new and very green may just kind of be a wash, might end up in the compost pile. It's also good opportunity now while you're out here to look at some of your beautiful marigolds that you've had planted. Absolutely stunning arrays. This is just one plant, and the reason it's doing so well, I've actually got it in a pot. Sitting here in this pot, I try to move that pot and it's firmly rooted in the ground. So this plant is actually getting its nutrition, and the root system isn't just being supplied from that little tiny bit of dirt in the pot, but it's actually into the ground there. But this is a good opportunity to look the plant over and find any of these dried blossoms. Pick those, and you can bring those inside. Make sure you label them for the type that you started. And if you want to do some seed saving, you can just, oh, I can just smell the aroma of that marigold coming off of there. You can just break that open and you'll be able to harvest a whole bunch of seeds that you can start next year. Just look at that. Just gorgeous. God has truly designed a beautiful system where one flower off of one plant can then be used to start that many more plants. So aromatic. I'll just toss those on the ground. Maybe we'll have some come up there next year. I'm not sure. So yeah, this is a good opportunity anyway to look at your varieties, look for the dried blossoms. I know in the house I've got some sun gold tomatoes that I'm getting some seeds captured from. I'll try to cover that in another video. We're still waiting for some of the green peppers to turn red. Not really seeing, I'm not sure if it's because of the high temperatures and then the low temperatures that we've had. I know peppers are very meticulous with the actual temperature that they need to actually start to go into the full mature state. But keep your eye on those. You can also use it as an opportunity to find the larger fruits. Some really beautiful peppers here. You can dice these up, cut these up. You can freeze those during the winter. You can pull them out and have some fresh green pepper throughout the winter. You don't have to wait for all those to turn red. Have some acorn squash. This year we actually had quite a run on those. Got one there, that plant jettisoned over. While these aren't the largest fruits, we have several coming throughout the pepper garden. And probably gonna share some of those with my sister, who said she likes acorn and butternut squash, which we had a little bit more success this year than last. Although, still have to fight off those pests. There we are with one that's butternut squash hanging over the edge, tucked away. Really worked this year very diligently to try to keep the pests under control. The squash bugs, very intricately shaped butternut squash, like a trumpet. Yeah, you really have to work to keep the squash bugs off. The beetles, cucumber beetles get in there. Different varieties of those, some yellow, some red, the bugs themselves. And it's really important, again, like the zucchini, to find, you have to be careful handling the plants. You don't want to damage the root system, but getting down into the core of the plant, making sure you're keeping the dried branches, the leaves, so everything that's here is live and contributing to the health of the plant. You don't want to have any leaves as part of the system here that are dried and decaying and they then become a place that starts to harbor and provide shade and disguise to the pests that are actually going to be the demise of your plant. This vertical trellis system was a cool idea this year. We literally took, I'll just kind of jog over to the raised tomato bed. We took a couple of the vertical supports that we used. We had 8 of these, and we picked 4 of the best ones for the trellis system. I literally just took 2 of those and lashed them together at the top. Spread them apart like an A-frame. You can see the A shape there. They're literally wired with heavy gauge wire like a coat hanger or something at the top. And they made a very sturdy support system to put some pole beans on. I think these in fact are a European runner bean, which have just performed amazing. So we're actually going to be using these to make soups and possibly some British baked beans out of. So beautiful bean. We got a huge harvest. I actually planted on the outside and on the inside of each, probably about 8, 16, probably about 30 or so beans that have climbed up and just have, you can just dive into the middle of this and just see the plethora of these beautiful beans. Very gorgeous. And then really that's about it. We had some 3 sisters. You see the white tiled in area. I'll go to the other end here. That kind of is at the end of our little pond here in the middle of our garden. Here's a monarch butterfly flitting around. But we have a little pond here. There used to be a smaller plastic tub that decided to dig out and ended up getting a pond liner and have it going down quite deep. If I go up to feed the fish, it takes them some time to come to the surface because it's nice and cool at the bottom there. But it's nice to have some water for the birds to drink out of so that they're not trying to get water from the tomato. A lot of times people have problems with the birds pecking at their tomatoes just to get hydrated. And it's also a little place for, I see a little frog kind of tucked away back in here sitting on top of the dry stones there. They're good for keeping some of the bugs under control. They actually go down under the foliage there of all the zinnias that are growing, which are just stunningly beautiful, and can hop over into the zucchini and possibly be a contributor towards keeping the bugs that would go down around the base of your plants. But we had a wave of corn growing in here. Clean that out. Had some runner beans, pole beans going around some of the corn there, kind of like trying to use the 3 sisters process where you have the corn, and after the corn is growing about 8 to 10 inches tall, you plant some beans in there and they actually climb up the corn as their support system. The beans add nitrogen to the ground, and then you put some zucchini or something around the perimeter to possibly help inhibit keeping the raccoons and other critters from hopping in and getting into the corn. So it's a neat system. Adding too many beans in there actually starts to cause some constraints on the corn, because the way that the bean works is, of course, it wraps around the plant, and then it's kind of constricting the corn ear trying to grow. So if you're going to try that, don't put too many beans through there. And I think I'm going to space my corn out a little bit more next year. And I'm definitely going to choose a different variety. So keep track of the variety of vegetables that you purchase and how they performed. And I planted my corn in 3 waves this year. I actually had my early corn, and then I put in a second wave, and then I put in a third wave over here. And I probably, while you have to watch cross-pollination, I put them in waves where they all developed at different times. So I could have actually tried a couple different variety. I definitely could have tried a different variety between the first bed and the third bed. But that way I would in the period of 1 year, I would have been able to evaluate a couple different kinds of corn, whereas I had all the same kind. And while I didn't have some of the problems I've had other years, I really wasn't happy with the actual corn itself that we had this year. As I'm standing here talking, I have a butterfly flitting around on these sunflowers. Monarch there, pretty. So we had the first wave of beans that we grew on the corn was just regular Kentucky pole beans. And the variety that I chose here are these beautiful purple flowers. It's like a dragon tongue type green bean. The shoots right now are still very small. They've flowered and they're coming out. You can see this one here against my hand. So there's still a little bit to go with those, but we still have several weeks before we're going to see whether that's going to cause any damage. However, you can see that more that the top of this bean is going to develop, the more it's going to be pulling on the weight of this stalk here. So keep that in mind also. The more beans you plant, if you're going to grow them around your other plants, the weight of them is going to start to have an impact on the structure and support. So I might need to put a couple posts around the corner and possibly just tie some twine around the whole perimeter just to give some support to this. You can see the height of this is, I'm about 5'10". This is about 6 foot tall. The other stalks were about 6 foot tall, but by the time the beans had impacted, they had pulled everything down to about 3.5 to 4 feet tall, and everything was falling in on the other plants here, which is why they were kind of suffering. I had a yellow squash growing here that I had to pull out. The corn had just fallen over on those plants and had caused some damage to that, the lack of sunshine. But the zucchini that we have growing over here, there's an Italian zucchini here, and then just a regular black beauty. Still have some fruits there forming on it. They were able to survive. Plant is showing its age though, but some of these leaves that are down at the bottom of the stalk here, I'm going to have to come out and prune a little bit more. But seed saving also. Speaking of this beautiful sky, I can't remember the variety name. I maybe will put that in the, I actually have a couple of these blossoms dried out by the house. You cut this off, this stem here before gets nice and brown and dry, and then when it's ready, it actually kind of dips its head, similar to the head of the larger sunflowers, indicating that it's ready for the seeds to be harvested. So I have 4 of those bulbs in the house that I have saved for next year. I have a few seeds left from the packet that I bought, but will be this was a beautiful flower. All of this is coming from one stem, one beautiful stem. And the monarch butterfly has absolutely, you can see him flittering around while we're talking, has absolutely loved this variety of sunflower. So I'm so glad I planted this. Still have several blooms that are yet coming out. And then we've got the bulbs, the dried bulbs that are on their way towards providing some, I'm not really sure if these provide anything for the insects or not at this point. I know so with your large variety heads, such as this mammoth size here, the sheer weight, the plant stalk is of a diameter that I can get my fingers around. Saw one at the fair the other day that it was so big I couldn't even get the circumference of my fingers around the stem of the plant. It was amazingly thick. But this has still got some time to go for the development of these seeds. But if you want to save these guys, wait until the outer petals are all drying back entirely all the way around, similar as you see it starting here. and you'll see the individual seeds in here start changing. And at some point you'll be able to hold on to this, get some thick shears, cut that, and unless you want to like just be natural with it and let it sit out here for the birds to feast on, which is totally fine. But if you bought some and you're out of seeds, it's a good opportunity. Maybe you can let the birds get some of them and then bring the head in afterwards. But bring it in, and then you can just rub it after you've let it dry for a few weeks, and the seeds will just pop right off. Put it in like a little Rubbermaid container so you don't lose any of that and get a big mess. But great opportunity to examine your plants, walk around the garden, recollect on the fond memories of the year that you've had, the vegetables that you've harvested. Be looking for opportunities like we talked about with the peppers. The acorn squash can sit on the counter for a long time. The butternut squash, find the time this time of year when you're done processing your tomatoes, making sauce, all those wonderful things, to process your butternut squash. You can have some butternut squash, butternut soup. In the middle of winter, warm your body up on a freezing day sometime in January or February. And some poblano peppers. Those are looking really nice. Sometimes I get a random pepper mix in here. These are growing vertically off the plant instead of hanging down. And I don't recall having a variety that did that. So I'll be cutting one of those off and slicing it up and seeing what we have there. So sometimes you have the vegetable surprise. So it's fun and makes it interesting. But thanks for taking a walk with me through the garden today. September 9th, 2022. I really enjoy spending time with you. I hope that you enjoyed walking through the garden with me and seeing what potential that there still is left in the season. Even though we're in early September, we still have the opportunity to harvest vegetables, watch some of those peppers ripen. Look, get the support on those snap peas. That'll actually be our third wave of the year this year, more than I've been able to accomplish before. We had first harvest, second harvest in the spring, and now we're planting some late summer. Look at your days to maturity date on your package to make sure that you've got time to squeeze things in before your first frost. Look up your first frost date for your zone, for your area. And be looking to do some seed saving, even if it's just one plant. Last year, I had an onion a white onion that I allowed to go to flower. The onion is like a 2-year cycle. So I left the onion, I'm not sure if it was by accident or not, but the following spring, the onion came out of the ground from the previous year and it flowered. And the flower was like a snowball. It was just beautiful. And I watched it grow throughout the season, and I was able to, I looked it up, and once I was able to harvest the flower of the bulb of the top, it's on the top of the green stalk of your onion. So rather than harvesting the onion, I allowed it to sit in the garden for the following year. And I actually had that one onion bulb, the flower bulb, I put it in a container, I let it go, all the seeds released, the little tiny black dot seeds that you start an onion with. And all of the white onions that we grew this year were from that one flower. I still have a container in the house with the rest of the seeds that we'll use again next year. So again, thanks for walking through the garden with me. I hope that you have a great day. Happy gardening, everybody. Don't forget to like us.